With the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, the original Switch generation has come to an end, which is kinda sad to think about. This console released 8 years ago, and it was the first console that really got me and so many other people into gaming, so I'm pretty sad to see it go. Before the Switch, I was never really that into video games. I had a Wii, but that was all. I never had a PS4, Xbox One, Wii U, anything like that. I mostly just played Wii Sports and some shovelware stuff like Crazy Monkeys. The first real video game I played was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and I had a good time playing it, but I never really got that into it, mainly just because I was awful at it. I liked my Wii, I had fun with it, but it didn't really get me into video games. Video games were fun, but I just saw them as a way to waste some time when I was bored. But one day in 2017, everything changed. I remember one of my friends at school told me about a new Mario game that was coming out, called Super Mario Odyssey. He told me about how Mario's hat was alive and that you could capture enemies with it and control them. I thought that sounded awesome. When I went home that day, I immediately looked it up, and my first thought was that I'd seen Cappy at McDonald's somewhere. But then I watched the trailers and gameplay for the game, and I was amazed. I remember the first time I watched a playthrough of it, seeing the beginning of the game where you capture, chain chomp, and destroy stuff with it. Even as someone who didn't care that much about video games, this game amazed me. I had to have it. But it was then that I realized my Wii was 2 console generations behind and that I couldn't play it. The game was only available for this new console called the Nintendo Switch. I started doing my research on the Switch. I thought that it was so cool that you could switch between TV mode and handheld. My sister had a 2DS back then that I was kinda jealous of, so I thought that this console might be like the Wii and 2DS merged. That was when the yearning began. My only shot to get the Switch was at Christmas, which was months away, so I just had to be patient and hope I would get one. I learned everything I could about the Switch, and Nintendo itself. I learned about all the Nintendo games and characters I had no idea even existed before. I learned about every Nintendo console, the people who run Nintendo, the company's history, everything. I was obsessed. Just being excited for the Switch turned me into a Nintendo fan, and I'm happy that it did. After months and months of watching YouTube videos about the Switch and hearing about it from my friends, Christmas Day finally came, and I couldn't have been happier. I finally had a Switch, and Super Mario Odyssey. My dreams had come true. I immediately opened up the box, struggled to attach the Joy-Cons, and turned it on. After a few hours of trying to set it up, I finally played Super Mario Odyssey. It almost felt so real because of how long I'd waited and how excited I was. I was actually playing the game that I'd watched others play for months and wanted so much. I was horrible at it. I had to play on assist mode. But despite sucking at the game, I loved it. This was my first 3D open world game, or even my first 3D game in general. I was going from this to this. It was crazy. Super Mario Odyssey was the game that made me love the Switch. But for others, it was Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Animal Crossing New Horizons, the list goes on. The point is, this console had so many amazing games, and Nintendo was pumping out new exclusives almost constantly, right up until the release of the Switch 2. Even now, we're still getting some of Nintendo's new games on the Switch 1. This console basically saved Nintendo. The Wii U was a complete flop, so Nintendo had to give people something really good. The Switch did that. It felt like every Nintendo console before it had culminated into this one great system. It merged the Nintendo handhelds and home consoles, so no matter how you played, you got access to every Nintendo game with just one console. But of course, the Switch had its flaws. The hardware was outdated the day it came out, the Joy-Cons were small and uncomfortable, there was barely any storage space, and of course, the sticks drifted. But even with all this, I still think it's Nintendo's best console. I remember wondering how Nintendo would top the Switch for their next system. Every new Nintendo console always had some big idea that would sell it, like the Wii's motion controls or the Switch's switching ability. Then the Switch 2 was announced, which was basically an improved version of the Switch. I mean, I don't think that was really a bad thing to do. The Switch is such a good idea that it doesn't really make sense to just discard it. But it's kind of sad to think that Nintendo might only make Switches from now on. I love the Switch, but I don't really have plans to buy a Switch 2. If I had unlimited money, then yeah, I would buy one. But it's almost as much as a PS5, which I already sold a kidney to get, and apparently I'll die if I sell the other one. Anyways, the Switch 2 isn't a bad console. It's got some good stuff on it like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, and yeah, these games seem fun, but I don't know about 630 Canadian dollars fun. Plus, the games are 110 Canadian and 80 in the US. That's insane prices for Nintendo games. Nintendo games and consoles are supposed to be cheap and accessible. These prices are the opposite of that. I guess I can understand the console being more expensive. There's some premium features like 120Hz and HDR, but I think Nintendo should have included a cheaper option without those. 60Hz is perfectly fine for games, and most people don't care about HDR or even know what it is. But the games have no reason to be that expensive. They don't look like they take more effort or are more expensive to make. Nintendo was just being greedy. Anyways, my point is, the Switch 2 isn't a bad console. It fixes a lot of problems with the original Switch, but they're doing so much anti-consumer stuff that I just completely disagree with. I really hope that people vote with their dollar by not buying the console. That's the only way we'll see change. But hey, at least they fixed Joy-Con drift, right? Oh no.